All right, we're back, or at least I'm back. You're listening to Jackson Garrett, who hasn't been on the podcast in three podcasts, but I missed you guys and I missed Auburn basketball. Tried to watch while I could, and if I sound different to you guys, it's because my good friend Scott Holly, an LSU Tiger of all people, has bought me a mic. He said if I'm going to be interviewing head coaches and players, different things, I cannot be doing it via my crappy Apple headphones. And he got me this great mic here. So I hope it makes the difference. Again, shout out Scott Holly, my boy, Nashville, Tennessee, Louisiana raised. Had to do it at the beginning of the podcast. But we just beat the Colgate, whatever they are, by 27 points. They're a pretty good opponent. I know we blew them out, and I think people will be like, oh, whatever, you blow these guys out and out of conference. But Colgate's make the March Madness pretty often, so often that I usually do a bar crawl scenario around March Madness. I've had my friend Ryan, who also listens to the podcast, came up for it last time. I've done it previously, and Colgate is consistently one of the best bars in New York City for March Madness because their fans it's very close to New York City, so there's tons of fans. They get really hype. Only second to the New York City Auburn Club. But Matt, I'm back. We're back. It's the OG Jungle Boys.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you back. Thanks again to Ryan and Ben. You know, they're part of this rotation now and they're doing a great job, but always good to have the classic pairing back together. Colgate, 3 of the last 4 NCAA tournaments they've made. They're picked to win the Patriot League this year. And I think if you watch this game tonight, like they could play. Obviously, they're a way lower conference, but they could shoot the ball. They had 19 threes against a team this year, which we cannot fathom with our team. They beat Syracuse, who's down this year, but they beat Syracuse on the road. So wow. Good win, especially to get the offense going like we did tonight.
If I told you that the other team shot 44% from 3, and I said, are we going to shoot more or less than that? I think almost like 99 out of 100 times you're going to pick less. And we shot 45% from 3. We outshot a team that shot 44% from 3. That's really crazy for this particular team. So that was really fun to watch. We're really good when we make our threes.
Yeah. And we've said that on the pod, right? Like that's the missing piece with this team. The free throw shooting's a little low to start the year. Ben Young, shout out. Need to get the free throws up a little bit. And the shooting, the perimeter shooting. And on nights like tonight, when Neville Arena is hopping and plays are being made and guys are kind of feeding off each other, this was really the first game this year where it kind of felt like what we've seen the last few years on offense. We know the defense is terrific and has elite potential, but man, you have a couple guys hit some shots outside. Auburn's going to do this to a bunch of teams.
In hopes of getting this show back on format a bit, I've been missing, so I haven't been able to drive the show the way I like to typically, but we got MVP discussion. We always start with the MVP. I know who'd we get for MVP while I was gone? Cancun Jalen, I know, has won at least one MVP, I think, for the dual games in Cancun. Yep. I believe Chris Moore won MVP while I was gone, or was that when I was on still? I think that was when I was on still, right? No, I wasn't on because we thought for sure you were going to give Jalen MVP, and at the end of the podcast, you gave it to Chris Moore. Shout out Chris Moore. And then I believe Wendell also won an MVP at the St. Louis game. So we got quite the competition this year. I think, it was a good competition last year with Jabari Walker, with Walker actually pulling it out, unlike some people thought it was going to be. So we'll be keeping up with it all year. Matt, anybody really stick out? It felt like a really team effort on this one.
It was the balanced scoring. Everybody in our 10-man rotation who played tonight scored. But I think 2 guys that, again, what makes the difference in an Auburn blowout and an uncomfortably close win against a team like Colgate? I think it was 2 wing guys. KD Johnson, great to see him hitting shots, 4 of 5 from 3, doing all his usual KD stuff, but efficiently shooting the ball, hitting some of those open shots we've talked about, like that we want him to make in rhythm. So I think he's one candidate. I think Alan Flanagan is another candidate. Again, just so cool, collected, hitting mid-range shots, 3-pointers. Flanagan, he started out fast. Flanagan had 7 of our first 11 points, and I think kind of set the tone that, hey, we're going to hit some shots today. And Flanagan played the most minutes. He was out there the most. I think those 2 guys stood out to me.
All right, we're going to have to figure out whose box score is correct, because I have KD 4 of 4 from 3-point land. Perfect from 3-point land on the ESPN box score.
He missed one.
He missed one. I really wanted to give that he was perfect from 3-point range, but dang it. ESPN's trying. This is ESPN bias for KD Johnson over here. But
if you're watching on YouTube, we've got one pulled up from Twitter that we always kind of throw up. It's somehow Auburn related. Now, the only thing that could be, maybe his foot was on the line. He missed a corner three in the second half. Maybe his foot was on the line and it didn't count as a three.
Let's see, they got 5 of 8 for him. And what do they have on here? It's harder to read this one, I think.
5 of 9.
So, okay, disagreement here. Disagreement. KD, we will let you know on Twitter, social medias later whose box score was correct. But yeah, I think it came down to KD or Wendell. Allen Flanagan had a really good game too. I think overall, I'd love to see Allen Flanagan's stats trending over this. I feel like this year he's really starting to turn up the 3-point game. Like he's hitting these open threes, and that's what we needed. That's what we didn't get last year from that position that really felt like it's fine. He doesn't have to be some NBA guy or whatever, but he does need to hit those open threes, and he is hitting those open threes. It's really great to watch. Another interesting note we can get into a little bit later, but Jalen Williams was out. So we had a weird starting lineup of Zep Jasper, Wendell Green, Allen Flanagan, and Chris Moore. So Flanagan and Chris Moore at the same time replacing that Jalen, which I thought was a really odd move. And we'll talk more about that later. And then, of course, Jonai Broom was in. So, Chris Moore is another option in there, not for MVP necessarily, but I guess it comes down to KD and Wendell. And sometimes the most interesting discussion comes from when it was this close. And so it was this much of a team effort. Do you have one you're picking over the other?
Jackson's not listening to me, guys. I was on board Flanagan. Wendell had a nice game. Yeah. Flanagan was the guy I threw out there over Wendell, actually. I think Wendell, okay. I do love, we can brag about Wendell tonight for sure. Like he continues to score efficiently and less loudly, which I think is huge for him with this team. He's not dominating the ball. He's sharing it. He's picking his spots really well. But I think Flanagan at 12.7 rebounds, 3 assists, only 1 turnover. That's and 5 of 7. I mean, hitting 5 of 7 shots from Flanagan of any kind is that's huge for this team. You and I have talked about it for the last 2 years. Like, can we get that something like the Flanagan of the potential we saw a couple years ago? And I just think that makes a huge difference in this game and for this team. But Wendell would be the third guy. Jonai Broom had 13 and 9, but it was kind of garbage time mostly. Where
you're winning me over to the Flanagan argument here because it was the way he did it. You're right. I was thinking with KD, he hit some of those in your face threes and hit a couple open threes, but like I didn't feel like it was necessarily like a game. Maybe I'm putting too high expectations on Wendell and KD. Like I was kind of looking to see for them to do something they don't already do. Wendell was a baller, but I wonder a little bit, maybe against like a team with taller guards, was he going to pull some of those off? A KD, he's not going to hit. Hopefully he hits those every night. Hopefully this is a new leaf KD, but it just feels like he hit tonight when, the shots were not super great. Still some stuff in your face, but Flanagan really felt like he hit the shots he was supposed to make. He made the layups he was supposed to make. He made the steals and the blocks and the rebounds he was supposed to make. The kind of stuff that would change this team if he did that every night. So maybe it comes down to just when it's a team effort like that, it's because someone like Flanagan's actually doing what he's supposed to do on the team when there's not always that spot,
Well, and we got him a lot of good looks too. And it was Flanagan's first start of the year. They moved Chris Moore down, which again, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Positional versatility on this team is just through the roof. Chris Moore has played power forward in the past in his career. It showed up tonight. He was able to slide down and cover for Jalen. This is great. I love that move. Chris Moore's might start every game this year, which is just something we maybe didn't think.
Not if Flanagan keeps getting MVPs like this. It's, we talked to Coach Pearl on the podcast asking about starting lineups this year. And Matt's over and over again talked about this point that he does not like to change his starting lineups. But this year's very different. We have a lot of guys that we don't feel like are like grabbing that starting position. We have big rotations, a lot of guys turning over. And he's still sticking with this starting lineup. It's really funny. And both with the heat check timeouts and the starting lineup, he disagreed with us about that being things he's funny about. He's like, oh, I'm not funny about the start. Oh, I'm not funny about the heat check timeouts. Be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you are. Like we've been talking about for years now, so the fact that Chris Moore's still starting and Allen Flanagan comes in, or it's interesting that he didn't take Chris Moore and like do something different and put Traore in instead, even for a game like Colgate. So he's really sticking by Chris Moore.
Well, and he's playing, I think Chris has stuck around. He's earned it. We'll get into we're going to have a whole segment of this podcast about the new guys. And I'm excited for that. But look, I think so. One thing you missed while you were gone, I know you watched some of the games too. They've kept the lineup the same, but we've started to learn coaches' tells. Like Flanagan is coming off the bench, but he's playing more minutes than Chris Moore, right? And it's becoming more and more consistent. So I think he just likes having Zepp and Chris Moore out there to start halves. Ben and I talked about that defensive minded first. And you saw it tonight. I thought the way Auburn came out and was just like hands everywhere, slapping at balls. Like the refs kind of let them play. And we've talked about in the past how that's great for us and our style. So maybe that's why they stick with it. Back to MVP. I might think about incentivizing a rule for our podcast this year. Like, I don't care who it is. If anybody hits 4 threes in a game, they get MVP. And KD led us in scoring.
What if he shoots it 10 times though? Is it complete? That completely could happen with Wendell or KD.
You won't sign up right now for 40% from any of our perimeter shooters from 3.
Man, math. You're right.
Look, Flanagan to me played in his role probably the best game overall. But I just find it hard not to give it to KD on a night when his shooting has not been great this year to start the year. And he got it going. He brought the energy. He did all his usual stuff, and he was efficient and hit his free throws. I don't know.
Usually I feel like I'm the one it comes in a little harder. Like even if it's a 50-50, I the one I want. You can convince me either way with Flanagan and KD right now. I really feel it was a big team effort, and I really don't feel like either way is a bad pick. So it'll come down to you, Matt. Pick your MVP, and I'll agree with you.
We're not going to wuss out on co-MVPs like we did last year a lot. That was
never again.
Softness.
Moment of greatness, honestly. They forced our hands on those. This is not one where there was 2 such great players that we have to pick on. There was 3 or 4 good players.
I'm going to give it to KD because he only played 18 minutes. He was able to stay in the game after that bad fall, and he had 0 turnovers, which KD is a great thing. He did more in less time on the floor. I'm going to give KD Johnson the MVP.
The Tasmanian devil himself, KD. He giveth and taketh, and tonight he gaveth a lot and didn't really take away, which is just exactly what you want out of KD. And honestly, do that every game, and he'll be the MVP every game. Just don't do anything too crazy. He did have one crazy play we'll bring up here. Right at the end of the half, he grabbed a rebound, I believe, and just jetted down the floor about 6 seconds left on the second half, which I was fine with. Sometimes I get irritated that near the end of halves, there'll be 10 or 15 seconds. They'll just slowly walk it up the court. And then it gives them 2 or 3 seconds to make a play. He jetted up the court, which is great. But in very KD terms, he just kept going like Forrest Gump. He didn't stop. He went straight to the basket, got knocked out, not actually knocked out, but just really had a bad fall. And also in typical KD fashion, he falls super hard, looks like, oh no, he's really hurt, and then comes right back out in the second half fine. So he's tough. I feel like he's really muscular for such a small guy too. I think these falls, he kind of just bounces off of them, and maybe got the wind knocked out of him on that one. Maybe would have gotten up quicker if it wasn't the end of the half. He might have bounced up if he needed to play defense, but he was down for a while and people were concerned, but looks like he's good to go. Congratulations, KD, MVP.
Yeah, great. And again, we've talked about it. Can a couple of these outside guys bring the offense to the table and score tonight? We talked at length about Flanagan and KD joining that party. That's huge for this team. I don't care who we play. If we play the number 1 team in the country, that's still, I'll take our chances if we have 2 guys shoot like they did tonight.
All right, well, let's talk stats. I just absolutely love the 45% from 3. I've been saying it all year. If we can just hit 30%, this team is going to be good because our defense is so fantastic. We make so many turnovers. We play well in transition. Man, just shoot 30%. We're good. Shoot 45% and you win by 27 points. It's just fantastic to see. I hope I think Jalen shot well from 3 in Cancun. We saw some other people do well. I know we had that bad game against Northwestern where the entire offense was terrible. I know we've struggled at other times, but I'm just hoping, and maybe if we look at some of the stats over the season, that maybe we're trending up a bit at times. Like we talked about Alan Flanagan, he really feels like he's starting to lock in an open 3. I don't know if some of this came down to Colgate saying this team is bad at 3. Let's give them the open looks instead of getting beat down low, and we just hit them tonight, or what the deal is. But man, it was just a ton of fun to watch out there.
I'm trying to pull this up as we talk. I wanted to do this tonight anyway, look a little bit at the stats for so far through 8 games, kind of who's doing what. I think this is updated with tonight. It says we're 8-0. So unless they're counting the exhibition game, I think this is right. We're at 29 for the year.
There we go. And undefeated. How did we not say that earlier? What are we, 9-0?
8-0.
8-0. Undefeated podcast. Haven't done a lost podcast. If you listened last year, we went a long time without doing a regulation pod lost podcast. We didn't do the UConn game. We did a whole tournament. So we didn't do a lost podcast until like February last year, right? So still haven't done a lost podcast. We're coming after the land. We'll keep posting on Twitter all the land we're collecting. We're expanding. We've grabbed Florida. We have Alabama and Georgia. We're expanding out. We're coming for you, Nashville. Matt's going to be living in Auburn territory before you know it.
Hope so. I'll do a quick check. We were down to 15 teams earlier who are still undefeated.
I think there's only one SEC team left, maybe Mississippi State.
Yep.
There's a good chance we can keep going. We have Memphis next, Georgia State, and then we have our West Coast tour. So really, that West Coast tour is going to be a big thing. It reminds me a lot. This team overall reminds me a lot of that 2019, 2020 team with Austin Wiley and McCormick and Samir Dowdy. I mean, we talked about that before the season, that we thought this team was going to look like that, and they're looking a lot like that right now. You can see the weaknesses, but they're not. They're just, they keep winning, and they keep winning against these like maybe a softer out of conference schedule than some of our past years. And that same team 2019-20 also had a softer out of conference, but we're really going to see something on the West Coast. And I don't think USC and Washington are great P5 teams, but man, just going away and playing in a P5 arena is a huge ordeal, especially the way we shoot, especially the way you saw how we played against Northwestern. I think was the only other P5 team we've played all year, and they held us to like 48, I believe, and we still won somehow.
USC, Tennessee's looked really good so far. USC took them to overtime earlier, so that'll be a tough one. So I did want to follow up on your point. You're right. Before tonight, including tonight, Flanagan's now 38.5% from three this year, which is great.
Fantastic.
And I also want to point out, Chris Moore's not shooting it a lot, but 4 for 9, 44%. That's really good to be a threat there. Wendell, KD, Jalen, all above 30. So like it's been bad as a team, and I don't think it's going to be much better. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're going to be around that 30% most of the year. But like you said, we can do some damage.
This is okay. This is all you're about to say. I say, because we also need to talk about, I noticed Joe Knight Broom. I see he's shot it 5 times. I feel like he had like 1 per game. I guess there's only been 8 games. So it just kind of feels like that. He shoots about 1 per game. He's never made a 3 in his entire college career, I believe, because we looked up the Morehead State. He still made one there either. I'm fine them doing it until SEC play, and at that point, just stop. Clearly, it's not in your game. And I know Bruce encourages it. I know you got to be threatening or whatever. But if after 3 years of college and you still haven't made a 3-pointer, pass the ball. Yeah. Make a threat some other way,
Or come to Auburn where they will let you shoot it.
And then the other guy to talk about that still hasn't made a 3 in his college career or at Auburn, so he's only played 5 games, I believe, or something like that, 5 or 6 games, is Chance Westery. And we'll talk more about these guys in a little bit, but we kind of hoped he would plug the hole on some of this stuff in the offseason, and even the first game or 2 when he wasn't in there. We talked about bad 3-points, and we were like, all right, well, when Chance comes back, we'll have a guy that can make 3s. Not so fast, my friend. He has not made a 3 yet. They don't look so bad. I don't know why they haven't gone in yet, but I think you can officially say after 5 games, he's not the answer for bad 3-point shooting. He probably won't keep going 0 of 10 is what he's at right now, but he's not the answer.
Yeah, and Trey's the same way. Trey hasn't made one when he's played, and I mean and Johan has a great looking shot for a guy his size. He's 2 for 13. So I mean, it's just a challenge, and we'll get into them. But let's get back to tonight's game. Any statistics you wanted to point out?
I just like to pick out. You like to pick out these. I think the big 3 usually for us is the 3-point shooting percentage, the turnovers, and the rebounds. But also for us, I guess you could say big 4 really, but the 4th one's just for fun really, is our blocks, because we're in the block party. And that one, I'm going to look up like the average percentage that we need to block every game to be the number 1 team, because that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for it to be the number 1 block team the 2nd year in a row. Well,
we are right now. Coming into tonight, we're number 1 in America.
So I'll look up last year's stats in a minute, and we'll see what the average was for last year. We're going to see if every night we can keep up with that, because I'm we love the block party on this podcast. I'm hoping the rest of the fan base is like getting that out there. I'm not getting the vibe that's getting like embraced as much as it should, but I'm hoping maybe by SEC play we'll have this big, 2 years in a row we're aiming to be the number one block team. So I don't know if you want to talk about rebounds and turnovers, maybe those are the other two big kind of stats.
Yeah, we won both. You would expect to win rebounding and turnovers against Colgate. We did, although credit to Colgate. I didn't think they got pushed around too much, and they only turned it over 12 times. I mean, against our defense, that's not bad at all. But credit to Auburn's offense. Like, not only did they shoot well, they only turned it over 8 times against a team that, could be in the NCAA tournament. Always love to see single-digit turnovers. And ultimately, we shot the ball 10 more times than they did through those turnovers, through those rebounds, and we made 12 more than them. So those extra opportunities when you're not a great offensive team are even more important. They weren't as important tonight, but keep in mind that rebounding and turnover advantage against a team where it's one of those 58 to 56 games. Like, those can really make the difference. So good to see us doing well there. And the other thing I would mention, just from looking at the box score, I love non-conference games like this where we can not put too many minutes on our heavy minutes guys like Wendell Green, and obviously Jalen was out, but nobody, I guess Flanagan played 27. Everybody else was 22 or under. So we really split the minutes at a lot of these positions. And I think that was really cool. Great to see Lior get in there as the backup small forward.
Lior minutes alert. I think the first minutes he's had all year so far, surprising. I mean, we talked about so much in the Israel stuff. We talked about with the sports rabbi. We enjoyed watching him last year when people were hurt. It's really crazy. And they talk about playing professionally in Israel and all this stuff. And this roster just so deep, he just can't get in. He's one of those guys, honestly, that the transfer rule should have helped the most. I don't know what he's doing, with his major, all that. I'm sure he's got his own life going on outside of basketball too, or whatever. But he seems like the perfect guy that could have went to a Bryant University or even a Colgate or one of these like smaller G5 teams that make March Madness and like started or played a lot of minutes. And he's chosen to come back here. And I think maybe part of that, personally, I think it's cool to be a big dog on Auburn's campus and to be potentially on a team that can be a contender again. I think he probably had so much fun last year on a team that would be number one. You come back, it's like, I'm sure the atmospheres are different at Bryant University, but Lior's back. It was just good to see him, and he hit a 3, which was really fun.
Yeah, no, man, just what a blessing to have him as a third string player, and you can plug him in. That's what gave Bruce the flexibility to just say, hey, Chris, you're going to play power forward tonight, fill in for Jalen with Johan. You two are going to play power forward, and that's it. And then Lior is just going to slide in at 3 because we're not going to mess with Chance until it was garbage time. Chance is a backup point guard. That's what he is right now. That's the other thing that kind of happened while you were out. Bruce even said after one of the games, like, we're putting too much on Chance. We're asking him to play 3 positions. No one's really done that here, especially in their first year. So he is the backup point guard now. And having guys like Lior, guys like Stretch, even if we were to go down a center, it just gives you that option to not mess with everybody's lineups, like everybody else's responsibilities, if you want to. And that's a huge help.
Here's an interesting stat. So I finally looked up blocks per game. So last year, we, as the number one team in the nation, averaged 8.3 blocks per game. That was the number one in the nation. And so you think, okay, there's probably some other teams in there. We probably need to stay above that 8. Guess what? Number 2, 6.6. We had a full on like 2 more blocks per game than the next team. It's crazy. We like dominated last year in blocks. We didn't just get number 1. We blew past them. Now I want to like look up like records for most points blocks per game, like average a season, because we blew away the rest of the teams. The second team was Western Kentucky, who had a super tall 7'4" guy that was always competing with Walker Kessler. Surprisingly, number 3, Alabama at 6.6. Number 4, tied for number 4, Kentucky with 6.6. And number 5, Florida. So 3 SEC teams in the top 5. That's pretty, I guess, I don't know if that's like an athlete thing or the way we recruit or the way we play offense or what, but 5 teams in the top 5, and we blew them all away to be number 1.
And this, so Auburn's official statistics say, guess what we're averaging this year? 8.3.
Really? Okay.
But I also saw we were at 8.1 and we had 8 tonight. So we're 8 something.
And I saw that I posted on Twitter the SEC leaders right now in blocks is number 1, Jonai Broom, number 2, Dylan Cardwell. Dylan, man, he's killing it. And he's just going to be always number 2 in these stat sheets. But it's amazing just to have the Block Brothers, hashtag Block Brothers, trademark Block Brothers. I want to get the block stuff going.
Can we just talk about Dylan for a minute? Because I thought tonight one of my bigger takeaways was just, my goodness, how far has he come in 1 or 2 years? Like the control he's playing with. He made a couple plays, like somebody threw a terrible pass that he had to elevate forward, keep the ball high, dropped off a perfect pass to Johan, I think, for a dunk. And he was 4 for 4 shooting. Sure, we see the dunks, but he hit a hook shot today, 9 points, 6 rebounds, however many blocks in 18 minutes. I mean, that if he was playing the 30 that Kessler was playing last year, he would be putting up 10 to 15 a game, double-digit rebounds possibly, and 6 blocks. And just the fact that he's turned into that kind of player, and he still brings the energy and the passion, but he is just so settled as a player. Like he's defending every position on the floor comfortably. He's rebounding terrific. Like I just can't gush enough. We got a chance to talk to him last year at the end of the year, which was, awesome for us, but just really happy with how he's developed. And he talked big goals about NBA and pro basketball with us, and he's on his way because he has really taken his game to another level.
If he keeps improving the way he does, so he's on his 3rd year. He should have 2 more because of the COVID year. Hopefully he embraces that and he feels like one of those people that might actually embrace that. And he just keeps growing in the little things. He's not doing anything that I'm like completely shocked by year over year, but you just compare him to where he was in his 1st year to his 3rd year. And the 1st year we were talking about before he came in, like, is he going to get a scholarship? Is he waited around to get the scholarship? Is he just going to be a walk-on? Is he part of like a deal to get other players? What's the deal? And he got some playing time that 1st year, but man, it's the little things. You're right. He had a little hook shot tonight. You talked about the dunks. He had one play where he brought the ball down, waited for their guy to get out of the way, and dunked it. And in the past years, he would have tried to immediately put that thing back up and freak out and miss it, or he would have tried to put it through traffic. And he was just calm and composed, grabbed that ball, waited for the right moment to throw it down instead of making the mistake of trying to float it back up there or something, because he knew he was in control. He knew he had it. And that was huge. That's the difference right there from last year to this year. It's just that little bit of control, that little bit of patience. The little hook shot was great too. You wonder if you're right. You wonder if he had more minutes, if he could do a couple more things,
Well, and he's had great experience, obviously, with Walker last year, and even Broom this year, I think is going to be a real benefit to him. Do it all, Dylan, man. He really is doing it all, and he's playing his role perfectly. And you and I talked at the beginning of the season about having some concerns about other guys like falling in line with their roles. I think when you've got a guy like Dylan Cardwell out there doing what he's doing, you've got guys like Chris Moore and Zepp who are just selflessly kind of doing their thing. Like, it makes it easier for all those other guys with maybe higher ceilings and higher potentials. Like, I don't want to be the one that sticks out for the bad reasons. And I think the culture, we always come back to that. Bruce has just built such a cool culture for players. And, man, just cool. I think Dylan's a huge part of that. And Chris Moore is a huge part of that. I think that's why there's some loyalty there, even if we might, disagree about how to use him. Like, I don't know. Cool win, good win. I just wanted to brag on Dylan because I thought, well, he put together film tonight that I just hadn't seen him put together the whole package in one game. I know it was Colgate, but I've seen it all year. He's effortless out there. He reminds me, this is a weird comparison because he's so loud and, WWE and all that stuff. He plays at center kind of like Jared Harper used to in a way, when he's just like gliding sometimes now. The game is almost like slowed down for him. It's really cool.
Yeah, the other interesting part for me for Cardwell, and this is more big picture or whatever, is just that's what we love about college basketball as a kid like Cardwell. I know we've talked about how much of a fan favorite, a podcast favorite, whatever, because the energy and all that, but it's not just the energy. This kid is growing in his game every year. And that's what you're really afraid with the NIL stuff, the transfer stuff, and the way things are going in college basketball and college sports in general. We're getting to watch him grow every year. And that's honestly becoming like rare and special to actually see a kid every year progress, and hopefully a kid you see for 4 or 5 years and get to follow and say, that's our guy. That's the guy. Like, and there's a lot of this in being fans in college sports where it's like, those are kids out there. They're trying their best. We don't boo them. We don't, get really mad about them. you support them and you hope they can do better, whatever. And that's because we historically watch these kids grow over the years. And a lot of times we'll see them grow and have a great time. And like, you see a kid and you see another kid years later, like, well, that's kind of like the other one that grew over the years and we're going to support him. And by his senior year, he's going to be thriving. We don't see that as much anymore, but enjoy it while you got it. Cardwell might be one of those last guys we get to really see do that.
But I'll tell you this, we're seeing it a lot more at Auburn than other places around the country. Guys sticking around, guys accepting their roles, getting better. There's a lot of guys on this team that you could point to that you and I might have thought wouldn't be here this year.
Half the roster. The way things are going on other teams, I mean, that might be the difference right there. We talked about at the end of last year's podcast, how many people we thought were going to be gone, how Bruce needs to be more brutal in the transfer portal and like really like AAU this thing and have a new team every single year. And he didn't do it. But now we're kind of seeing the benefit of that. And the big reason I felt the reason we need to do that is because all these other teams are losing so many guys. We need to do the same thing the other way around and be going at it. But hey, if we can pull this off every year, like these veteran teams can be great.
Long way to go. We'll see how we handle some because the SEC looks pretty strong. So we'll see how that goes. But
was there one more stat we missed? The rebounds, the turnovers, the blocks.
I think if you're cool with it, I was going to mention great to see some really good moments from Chance and Johan, and then we can kind of transition maybe into our conversation about that bigger picture. I thought they both looked more comfortable. Obviously, Colgate, a little bit of a step down in competition, but they both really played their 18 minutes well at their positions. They're kind of locked in where they are, which I think is really good for their development. Chance, you mentioned the shooting, hadn't been there, but he continues. He had some great defensive play. Colgate kept switching onto our small guards like you would think a veteran, experienced team would. Well, Chance was the one guy, when he got switched down there, he poked it away with those long arms every single time from that post player. So he's just got, both of them have really unique bodies and skill sets. And Johan, you saw a dunk in there. You saw some really good rebounds and hustle plays, 8 points, 5 rebounds from him, 2 assists in 18 minutes. That's really good for, he has looked, both of them have looked a step slow and just like things are moving too fast, like the opposite of Dylan, like we just talked about. Tonight was a good step forward within their roles, and you see the potential. I mean, you can't watch them play for more than 5 minutes without seeing it. It's just putting it together on a team with playing 10 guys is a little tough.
Yeah, it is really, and it was really underlined something I already wanted to talk about. I was already texting Matt earlier in the week saying like, the biggest thing I felt like was missing from my hot takes that weren't getting talked about were the Chance and Johan minutes, especially in the St. Louis game when things got tough. All of a sudden, things got shrunk real hard. All this depth platoon, we're going to play 14 guys every game. And all of a sudden, when times got tough, the one time all year, the minutes shrunk up, And so I don't know. I think it's interesting. And tonight got super underlined because Jalen was out with a weak LVP, weak immune system. Jalen, I heard all about this Cancun. He partied too hard in Cancun.
You're I was gonna say pro COVID. You're not pro COVID. You're pro.
I'm pro COVID. I'm giving it to everybody.
But look. First of all, no one's ever talked about a 14-man platoon.
I'm being a little facetious. I just thought it was interesting that it shrunk up. Yeah,
we play a 10-man rotation every game, and that's what Bruce has settled on. He was at 11 earlier, and Trey got knocked out because they want Chance to play point guard. So they're playing 10. I think they're going to play 10 no matter what, barring like catastrophe. And did you watch the St. Louis game?
I watched parts of it as I was in crazy stuff, but the underline I want to say this is that Johan did not start where I would have thought this is a perfect time for a guy we need to be good later in the year to start this game instead of Chris Moore. And they chose not to start him. And I think that says something. But go ahead, say your St. Louis part. Sorry.
No, you know what it says? That they haven't seen enough from him.
I know it, but that's the discussion I think we're going to have real quick now. I think we're going to get into it. I think if we're going to aim for championships, if we're aiming for these great teams, I think you saw coming into this year that we lost Jabbar and we lost Walker. We replaced them with these 2 freshmen. We replaced them with Joe Broom. Joe Broom's hitting what he needs to hit. But we knew before that this team without Jabari, without Walker, is not a great team. They could be good. They could be a scrappy team that makes the tournament and win some stuff at Neville Arena and loses some stuff away. We saw what the team looked like when we had 2 NBA elite guys. We take them off the team and then we say, okay, but we got Johan coming in, we got Chance coming in. Those guys they're not going to be as good as Jabari and Walker or anything, but they're going to give us a lot of talent, a lot of that high end talent we're going to need when we saw how we struggled against some of the higher end talent, especially a Wendell struggled a bit against that higher end talent. We went to Tennessee, when we went to Arkansas, you could see where the struggles were. So we said, all right, Johan and Chance will replace that. But now they're not really grabbing it by the horns, which sucks. We saw Trey didn't really grab those point guard minutes by the horns, and now he's just out of the rotation for the most part. We saw something tonight, but just in general, I think we're not going to see a ton of him going forward. But then Chance and Johan are in here, and I say, all right, they need to grab it by the horns. They haven't really grabbed by the horns. Chance hasn't made any threes. Johan's looked lost at times, but then it's chicken or the egg kind of thing. They haven't grabbed by the horns, but if we want this team to be great, we need Johan and Chance to go. Now you could buy in on this full veteran lineup and say these guys are just going to contribute, but I think that gives us a lower ceiling. Maybe the floor is a little higher, but I think it's a lower ceiling. And sorry, it's a long rant, but I just think this time of the year, I don't care if we struggle against some of these out of conference teams. I don't even care if we lose one or two. I don't even care if we lose one or two, if that is what gets Johan and Chance ready. And I'd rather lose that St. Louis game and feel like we learned something more about Chance and Johan than win it and feel like we didn't quite get there. I think Bruce is trying to play both games. I'm sure he's trying to get them chances and not lose. But I'm just saying, I think they need more minutes.
All right. Well, I don't know where to start with that. So you're just making a pretty big assumption here that there is this gold mine of potential in both of them that is going to show up in the next 2 to 3 months. I mean, that from what my eyes tell me and what I've seen, I see Johan on maybe a slightly behind Chuma track of a 2-year guy potentially who really comes into his own. Chance, I don't even know what the comparison is. His surgery didn't help. Missing preseason practice didn't help. I just think it's assuming a lot to just bank your whole season. You say we're playing for championships. Well, yeah, like we're playing for the SEC regular season first. And personally, I know you could say, well, this is non-conference. This is the time to do it. But just to be clear, okay, back up. I don't understand how playing these two guys when they haven't played well consistently. They're playing every half. Mostly they're playing multiple rotations every half. They're playing 30, 35, 40% of the minutes of the game. The only alternative is you bench Wendell, which makes no sense with what I've seen this year so far, or Jalen, who arguably was the best player of the last few weeks at that 4 position.
Is there any way we can pull up minutes for the entire season so far? Maybe like average minutes per game. I'm curious. Maybe I'm overplaying the St. Louis game where their minutes shrunk down to like, what was it, Johan or Chance? One of them had like 7.
They both had 7. They both had
7 minutes in a game where they could have learned a lot. Maybe that's just the flow of the game. But I feel like overall, we're not seeing as many minutes as I would like. I mean, I think we know what the ceiling is on Jalen, and when we know what the ceiling is on Wendell, and we need these guys ready for when those ceilings get hit, and they're going to get hit. There's going to be, I really believe, I love Wendell. What a baller. Dominates these out of conference teams. Looks so good out there, even against most SEC teams. He plays really well. We know when the big guards get on, it's going to be an issue. And we would love to throw Chance in the fire and know he's ready.
But aren't we doing that right now by playing him at point guard solely?
I just, you have a St. Louis game like that and you don't play him a ton. You played him 7 minutes.
Well, why did we not play him a ton? He's going up against Yuri Collins.
There's going to be guys like Yuri Collins out there. I know Yuri Collins number 1. That's my boy. I hate that I missed that game and didn't get to like be on that podcast about Yuri Collins, but you got to go out there and put him in the fire so he sees it before we get to the SEC when we're going to need him. And the wins and losses are going to matter.
I go back. It's not like they're not playing. I know you can look at that one game and say, hey, they only played 7 minutes. If you watch that game, we lose. We lose bad if we play those guys more. I mean, I don't think that's Bruce doesn't play guys 33 minutes because he wants to. Okay. I'm not willing to sacrifice wins and losses during the season on behalf of a guy who had surgery and missed the first couple games of the year and all of preseason practice. And Johan, who I think he's going to be a really good player, but he's not on a team that is so fundamentally sound on defense and has so much potential on that end. If I'm the coach, I'm not willing to do it. By the way, the averages, chances at 14 minutes a game, Johan's at 15, 14 and a half, 15.
This is where I'm glad we brought up the minutes, and on YouTube you'll see the minutes. I'll say it again here out loud, but Jalen is second on the team with 25 minutes.
Yep.
Johan's at 14.6.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing I would make up. I don't think he needs to play more than Jalen. I just think these are the experimental times. I would bump Johan's up to like 18, bump him up 4, so 22 and 18. That would be perfect. Perfect. Guess why? Because Jalen was out. That's why
he played. And we were playing Colgate.
And we're playing Colgate. So I think I just say bump his minutes up. I want to know for sure that he is not going to be a guy that's going to be a star by the end of the year. Like, we need to know that now.
Well, you know that.
Hoping he could be that in the SEC. I don't think we know that yet. I still think he's got potential in Nevada Conference if we play him enough minutes to know.
I don't understand the difference between playing 14 or 15 minutes a game and 18. I really don't.
It's an extra rotation. Do it early in the game, an extra rotation, stay out there an extra rotation and see what they can do against the starters on the other team. He's playing a lot of garbage time too. In these blowouts, he's getting a lot of these minutes in these blowouts at the end. Also, he's the guy. Jalen's on the bench and Johan's out there for that last 5 minutes when we're blowing a team out by 20, when it doesn't really matter. He's cleaning up, misses. That's his thing. Very
unrealistic take, because if you watch any other college basketball team besides Auburn, I'm just going to tell you, your backups aren't playing 14, 15.
These guys, we're hoping before the season, we thought Chance was going to be a starter and we needed him to be a starter. Yeah. Johan, same thing. I know your boy was Jalen, but I was hoping by the end of the year, Johan Traore, 5-star guy, was going to be our starter, was going to be our guy when we had to play against Tennessee and Arkansas and Kentucky and needed a guy with elite talent, which Jalen, love him to death, and he's grown a lot and he's going to be good. And I love this veteran team. When we're going to play those big 5-star lineups on the other teams, we're going to need these freak athletes. We saw some tonight with Johan, some of these freak athlete moves. He's just got to get comfortable out there. And I'd rather throw him into the fire now and see how it goes than to play these limited minutes. And I know, I'm sure there's people out there yelling at me like they don't deserve it yet. They haven't grabbed it by the horns. It's chicken or the egg. You lay on the edge of they need to grab the minutes. I'm saying make them take the minutes until the at a conference is over. And then I'll worry about wins and losses and trying to squeeze out these wins and losses with a veteran lineup come SEC time.
Yeah. I mean, I just care more about the team and a winning culture. I don't think you give guys minutes when they don't deserve it. And I don't think there's any way we can look at these guys and say they're not being given a fair chance to give. They're playing every half. They're playing in with starters. They're not just stuck playing backup minutes. They're playing sometimes with the other starters. I don't see how they're being shortchanged or limited in any way. Now, yeah, the 7 minutes thing was a little un-Bruce-like in the St. Louis game. But there's a reason I think that we went. Again, we don't get to see practice.
Johan and Chance are playing the least amount of minutes of our rotation. I don't count Trey anymore as in our rotation. Yeah. I think he is completely out. So Chance and Johan are playing the least amount of minutes in our rotation. And I'm saying these two guys should be our stars, the guys that need to be hitting the ceiling at some point this year if we want to be great. And they're not right now. And that can be, that's on them for not hitting it there, on Chance for being hurt, on Johan for, maybe, I don't know when he started playing basketball, or I know he's from France or whatever, but I'm pushing that. If I'm the guy, I'm pushing them more and putting them out there more and saying, get some minutes, get some experience, go play at USC in Washington and show me you can do something. And
they're going to play.
They're going to play. They're just going to play the least amount of minutes. And I know what I have with Jalen. I know what I have with Flanagan. I know what I have with Chris Moore.
That's not true. Yeah. We don't know what you didn't know what you had with Flanagan.
Okay. To be fair, yeah, he is making threes now, which I wasn't sure about.
With Jalen this year.
I think we know what we have with Jalen this year. I think we're good. I think we know what we have with Jalen. He's going to be a nice veteran guy. I think he's got a ceiling, and I think, he's got a better 3-point shot than I thought he was going to have this year. What is he averaging right now? 31%. Nice. That's good for him, but I would love to see Chance out there hitting at least something.
Yeah. I mean, this all sounds great until you do something like this and you cost your team a game. The players in the locker room look around and be like, what the hell are we doing? We're putting because the other thing
I think you want these wins, but you've also talked about this. These games, like losing it at a conference early, it's not like other sports. Like you can lose these games and they're really not that big of a deal. Sure, you don't want to, like, it could hurt your net later or whatever they call it now, but we talk about how you can lose a game or two, and it's better to lose a game or two and learn a lot about your team and peak at the right time than the other way around. And I'd rather us learn some more and play these guys minutes more. And I don't think we're going to lose these games necessarily either if we play a little more minutes from each one of those. I don't think that these other guys are absolutely killing it. I think we've seen in this game, we've seen in many games, a lot of these guys are pretty even. Other than maybe Wendell and maybe KD, these guys are really rotating a lot because nobody's really like sticking out that hard.
No, that's not true. That's just what Bruce does. That's what he's done it forever.
This is a bigger rotation than usual, right? Jabari and Walker played
9 every year. We're playing 10 this year. It's not that big of a difference. So just to be clear, like what we're arguing about from your standpoint is 3 more minutes a game.
Oh, I wanted for Johan. I wanted 4 more minutes a game.
4 more minutes a game.
1 more rotation.
So for what?
And that's the minimum. I mean, you could go harder than me and say these guys are our future stars and we need them to be our future stars. On Kentucky, on some of these other teams, these 5 stars, they don't care about the veterans. They're going to play their 5-star guys and get them comfortable by the time SEC comes along.
I don't know personally. Granted, I don't follow all the other programs as closely as some people do, but I just don't know of a team that would, based on what we've seen from those 2 guys, I don't know of a team that would throw them in there potentially more than they're ready to contribute, just as like a weird in-season social experiment. Like I don't understand.
I think this is the time of year to figure things out. We're not giving enough minutes.
That's where we differ. I think I've learned a lot about this team. I feel like I know. I actually feel really good. That was going to be one of my topics to discuss. I feel like we know exactly who we are. Earlier than I expected us to as a team. I see everybody outside of those 2 because they don't always follow their assignments and they lose track of where they are on defense half the time. Everybody else is completely locked in as an elite defensive unit, and we'll see how it goes in the SEC. We're going to have to.
That's what I worry about. Is the ceiling. The ceiling is what I'm worried about.
I just don't understand how playing 15 minutes a game, you can't show some more of that and earn.
Without Johan and Chance being the stars we hope they could be, the team is basically the Walker and Jabari list team from last year. Like, sure, I know Jonai is helping also.
And how did that team end up?
They would not have been good without Jabari and Walker. They would have been fine.
With those 2, how did they do at the end of the year?
They didn't win March Madness, but they were good most of the year.
Tournament. They didn't win. I mean,
and that didn't come down to Jabari and Walker though. That came down to the guys that stuck around. I know the March Madness game. That it was the worst game for Walker and Jabari, but I didn't exactly feel like the guards were setting them up great either.
Did you feel like that team? So here's where basketball is weird.
Okay? And down the stretch, we knew the flaws down the stretch. And what were the flaws? They weren't Jabari and Walker. They were the guards. And everybody in the nation's talking about it.
And why was that? Why were we so dependent on them?
On the guards?
No, on the big guys.
Because the guards couldn't score. They couldn't get the ball to them. They kept getting trapped by the defense on the other team. They figured out they could really pressure Wendell, and he couldn't get around them. It was an issue. We couldn't get the ball going until late in the shot clock. And then Jabari, of course, couldn't create his own shots, which was an issue. But
yeah, I mean, we had lots of issues. I just think it's just way more complicated than that. Like I love Jabari and Walker are 2 of the best players to ever come through this program, will be. I think they had that kind of special year. But basketball is a team sport. And when you play the way we play, it is a group. It's more than just a 5-man on the floor sport. It's a team sport. And I think what happened last year is the rest of our roster clammed up and didn't know how to add to the offense by the end of the year. And other teams figured out, hey, all we got to do is let Jabari do his thing and score 30. And if we shut everybody else down, we're good.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So I like that this team is so there's so many weapons, there's so many options, and I don't want anybody to have to do what Jabari did last year or Walker did, because we don't have to, because this is the deepest, craziest team ever. I'm not saying, look, don't if y'all are listening to this, I'm not saying we're going to win the SEC. I'm not saying we're going to win anything, but sure, we have a ceiling. I just think I don't know. It feels such like a Hail Mary to me what we're describing. Especially now, again, I think it's stupid to argue over 4 minutes. But if it's really stupid to say, hey, Wendell, we're going to cut your minutes. Jalen, we're going to cut your minutes when y'all are the two most productive players on the team.
I wouldn't cut them when it's important. Come SEC time when it's actually important to win. I just really
we
value these.
You just complained about that in an important game, the most important game of the non-conference schedule.
I love that game. I think we learned a lot. We can learn a lot from the St. Louis game. If we lost that game and we looked up at the end of the year, I don't think we'd even think about it.
I really cared about that game. I wanted to beat them again because they're really.
I think this out of conference, especially the way it's all set up, it's not like we're playing in the Hawaii one, or we're not looking for a number one ranking this year or anything like that. I think this year should be all about getting these stars ready, the Johan and Chance Westry ready for the SEC. Because I think right now what you're saying and the way you're excited about it is you're excited, and this will be, we'll stop doing this discussion in a minute, but it is I hope you're entertained by it. I'm having a good time discussing this. Is the kind of stuff me and Matt talked about on the phone all the time. But I think you're ready to lock in on this idea of a great defensive team led by veterans that aren't going to make a ton of mistakes. And sure, there's a ceiling, but they're a veteran team, and that's going to be the thing. And I'm not ready to lock that in yet, because I think we can be a veteran team with two guys that are stars that can go get those hard points when we're playing elite teams. When I could see this entire roster, love them to death, but against a great team away, I could see this entire roster claiming up. I'm not sure. I know we'd love to say KD can go get a point whenever he needs to, but we've all seen that, like, a lot of times he can't finish when he needs to. And if he doesn't get the call, it's going to be an issue. Maybe Joe Nye can be that guy in offense. Maybe Wendell, but we know the issues when the guards are tall. I don't know, we don't need to have Jabari and Walker to be those guys. We don't need a guy like that, but I'd like to have some guys that feel like could be that when we need it,
I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I just haven't seen anything against lesser competition, which is all we have to play right now. I just haven't seen anything to think that that's going to be there in the next 2 or 3 months.
We thought we saw in that first game with Chance.
We
were gushing in the first game.
The potential is through the roof. But you know who else's potential was through the roof? Chuma. And what did he do his freshman year?
Maybe this is another, Bruce's thing. We found out later that it was there for Chuma. And I don't know if maybe we didn't push him hard enough. I don't know.
He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. If you watched him, you knew he wasn't ready.
I always said from the very beginning that Chuma had that special touch.
Yeah.
And he had that special game.
And it took him 2 years. It took him 2 years with this coaching staff that is elite at development to get there.
Yeah. And it took, we called it for 2 years straight, basically, too. Like, shoot the ball, Chuma. Take the ball to the hoop. We know you have it. I don't know. And I think we talked to one of the coaches too about that at one point, and they were like, or maybe it was one of the former players like Anthony McLemore, because we brought that same up, and they were like, oh yeah, they would yell at him, but he had to shoot. He needed to dunk that, and he just wouldn't do it. And it took 2 years to get them out of his shell. I don't think Chance and Johan have that same tentative issue. They might not have the same skill level, but
they do. Yeah.
I feel like I've seen Johan take it to the rack a couple times and dunk the ball when Chuma the year before would have passed it or tried to lay something up.
Look.
Chance does not have a confidence issue, I don't think.
Well,
what I'm watching. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I'm a huge Chance guy. I think he's the game's moving too quick. And I just think he's just off. I think missing that time, you were on this. Everybody tries to downplay these injuries and these minor surgeries. It's a big deal to miss all of practice when you're transitioning to college, especially on a team like this. He just doesn't look comfortable yet. That you see the skills. Don't get me wrong. These guys can be great players, but look, Johan got the ball in the middle of their zone on a possession today, wide open at the free throw line. Jumper, attack, dunk, layup, pass, something. Literally didn't look at the goal, threw it back to the point guard, and Bruce is over there. You can just see, oh my gosh, I want Johan wide open in the middle of the court.
He had another one where he attacked at that same spot though, right? I remember he attacked the same spot. The guy tried to take a charge. He went around him, got a blocking foul. I think he finished it and then didn't hit his free throw maybe. Yeah. But in one game, he made the mistake of passing that ball, and later that game, Bruce talked to him. He didn't make it again. Let's get him some more minutes so he doesn't do that anymore.
He's playing every half. I don't know what to tell you. He's
Yeah.
playing
Well,
every.
we don't have to spend 2 hours on this. I think we both have our pieces out there, and this will be fun to follow throughout the year. If we think that like, oh man, we should have played it more or less, or oh they never had it at all, or whatever. So I've got like that was my biggest one was I wanted to get that out there after like 3 episodes of hearing about it. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know if we want to talk briefly about anybody else on here. Not I don't want to be the negative Nancy all the time, but I do want to bring up that Zepp's just kind of I just haven't heard much. I didn't hear you guys talk about him much on the last couple podcasts, and he didn't do much this game. And I still think he's playing great defense and a contributing player. But I think the experiment for him this year was if he could be an offensive player, and he's still not done that. So I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
Would you rather, not to extend our argument there, but would you rather start Chance in his spot at the 2?
Well, this is the thing about Chance now because we were hoping he could fill 3 spots, right? We hoped he could fill 3-point shooting. Not happening. I think we can lock that one in. That he is not going to be the solution to our bad 3-point shooting. I think he can make threes. I don't think he's a solution to our bad 3-point shooting. The other solution, a guy that can drive the ball when we need tough points. It's taller, that can drive through contact. Maybe. No idea really yet on that. We'll see if we have some else. But also, I think
that's been when he's looked the best. That's been when he's looked
really, yeah. But the third one, and I think most importantly of the 3, is when Wendell struggles against tall guards at the point guard position, we need another guy that we can put in there, and we got Chance. And so I'd rather him spend more time getting comfortable to when we do play those games. And Matt's ready to say so. I want him comfortable, ready to go.
Which is exactly what we're doing by only playing behind Wendell.
I'm totally glad that he's our backup point guard. Yeah, I just maybe a little more minutes or something, but
you just want Wendell to play 22 minutes.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, in these games,
which he did tonight, by the way.
And I know that you brought up, I think briefly at the start that or maybe somebody else was that Chance was doing too much, and Bruce decided to pull back from this idea that he could be our Swiss Army knife, and I'm cool with that. I think we figured out that yeah, there was too much going on, and maybe we'll see some quicker development now that he's just playing point guard. I would love to maybe see one rotation replace something else just to keep it alive. The idea that he could, if there's an injury or something like that. But maybe that's where you get those extra minutes, over Chris Moore or over a Flanagan or something just to get those extra minutes. But that keeps that discussion going. Zepp, I don't know from Zepp. At least he had his open 3 again, which is good. I think other than that, we talked about Lior briefly, which great on Lior. Trey briefly played in garbage time for the most part. And I think that kind of completes. I don't know if you want to talk Joe Nye at all. I think we talked about him a little bit already.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one area we can improve. I think Broome, man, you've seen all the potential, like as a really physical player, as a guy who can score, can rebound. He's still missing a lot of good looks. And the longer it goes in the season, you start to get nervous that like, okay, is he just going to miss a lot of these that seem like, very makeable shots for a guy with his skill set. I know he had a little injury too there for a while, but you kind of see it go in spurts. Like he really struggled to put the ball in the basket in the first half. In the second half, he had couple stretches where he forced a couple steals. He's a really versatile player. I think he's better defensively and better as an energy guy than I thought he would be. He fits in the culture really well. Glad we have him. Great transfer in again, Bruce, and then continue to knock it out of the park with that. But I think another area this team can continue to go up, if we're going to be a bad shooting team, let's score more of our good looks inside with Broome, with Jalen, with Dylan. Let's be a little more efficient there. And I think I'm seeing the staff realize something that's crazy. This was the most threes we've made all year, was 10. It wasn't too long ago we were making 17, 18, 19 in a game fairly regularly. So I think this staff is shifting their offensive focus. I can sense that I talked about last game. We're seeing more post passes, right? We're getting guys in the post more than we ever have in 8 years with Bruce.
Hey, big shout out for the ability of 1, to get him the ball, and 2, for him he's got really great hands and really great feet. And he stole 2 balls tonight and then took them to the hoop, like stole them at the half court and then took them all the way down dribbling. So he's great at that. Walker couldn't quite do that, but both him and Walker had great hands. And we love Austin Wiley, but we thought we maybe just didn't even know how to play a center. And I think it was 50%. We did not know how to make good entry passes, and 50% he could not catch the entry passes that were sent to him. Now we're getting both those worlds. It looks like we're getting good passes. and our guys are catching them. So we're actually getting some pretty decent looks. I think that's where you're getting at. Like he's getting those looks and he's got really good moves too. So then sometimes when he makes one of those good moves and it doesn't go in, it can be pretty disappointing. I think that's what you're getting at. But I don't know. I don't know if we can, well, you know what? I'll be on the lookout for him is if he is consistently inconsistent right now. Like we're learning a lot about him and we've seen games where he's just disappeared and it was really disappointing, and games where he's dominated, and games like this one where he played pretty well. And so I'll be really curious if this is like him getting comfortable and we find out that a game like tonight is his average and this is good, and he even keeps it going through the SEC, or maybe excels through the SEC like Walker Kessler did last year. We can all hope and dream, or we might find out by the end of the year that he's just like this. It's inconsistent. You can guess that every third game he's going to be bad, and every third game he's going to be good, and the other one's going to be fine,
And we still got to see how he does, going up against Castleton, Sheboygan, get that's a big step up for him. That's why he came to Auburn to play, on that stage. And I think he's going to be fine. But yeah, something to track for sure. I'm really encouraged though. I mean, honestly, wouldn't you agree through 8 games, the production that Dylan is giving you and Janai is giving you, I mean, that you feel great about that from a replacing Walker's as good as you can,
The combo is great. I feel like I'm going to be memed or something at the amount of times I've said the ceiling. You do worry that like Walker gave us that great ceiling and you have 2 very good guys now instead of 1 great guy. So we'll be curious to see like, are both these guys going to get just boomed by Oscar Sheboygan and just dominated? Castleton, we saw even Walker Kessler struggle with Castleton at times last year and it got in foul trouble with him. So I'll be curious, maybe 2 guys thrown at him, we're good to go, but I'll be curious if either guy can, if all they're doing all game is just staying in front of Castleton and taking lots of fouls, but they don't contribute on offense or anything, that's going to hurt, so it'll be really interesting to watch. And don't expect like last year when Walker Kessler just shot out the gate in SEC play better than he'd ever been before. Like I don't expect that. That is rare that the guy's going to play better in SEC play than they do in at a conference.
Would that be the equivalent of something you would or hope for? Look, that's unicorn stuff, but like Chance and Johan, is that what you're kind of looking for? Because really, Walker came from, he was playing every game. He was
Jabari too. Jabari even, other than that UConn game. Yeah, I'm looking, and they got lots of minutes to do it. Maybe not to the same level, but I'm hoping that they start. You just see a game where, like you said, Johan's 3-point shots look pretty good. They haven't necessarily gone in. Just keep shooting in this at a conference, and maybe it clicks one day. And all of a sudden, you got a dangerous guy out there along with his athletic ability. And I know Jalen is too. Jalen's shooting really well, but like have 2 of them, and then a Chance, like have him start balling out where people start pressuring Chance because they think they can pressure him, and he starts blowing by people and dunking on people because he's 6'6". He hasn't really done that yet. And he doesn't feel comfortable doing that. But maybe after 1 or 2 whiffs by that other guard, he blows past and dunks. He's like, that's me now. I can do that,
Maybe if he gets 4 more minutes a game, he'll really.
Yes, in those 4 minutes, dude's gonna go Superman on him. Just watch.
Anyway, yeah, no, I just thought about that. I mean, look, if that were to happen, huge development for this team, and I trust the best coach in college basketball to see that and to help it. And look, if Johan passes Jalen, he doesn't like changing his lineup, but
and I want to say too that like a lot of times I've done this with their coaches in this sport and other sports, like they see them in practice every day. They see them a lot more than we do. So I have to assume they know what they're doing and all that. But then, man, we've heard a lot of interviews and from assistant coaches and head coaches. They're like, yeah, we didn't know he was that great until he did it. And then he was great. And I was like, how did you not know? You had like him for like a full off season and all like practices like several times a week. You didn't know he had that in him. And they'll be like, yeah, we didn't know until we saw it happen in a couple of games. And you're like, so then I can't like, I want to trust them, but like at the same time, you're like, I don't know. I've consistently heard them from their own mouths that they don't always know what they have until they have it.
Well, the games are different, and that's an argument for your side. Like the games are different, and I think they're being given as much runway that's healthy for their growth as possible. Pretty much, I like that they have roles that they've settled in. You're usually
I might if I was the coach, I might would have turboed them if I was the coach. Famously, 3 or 4 years ago, we had a guy named Turbo, and he I think something happened to him at the start of his career and he got boomed, and his mental side of his basketball game just got completely demolished, and he transferred, I think, maybe South Alabama or something, which is a very rare miss from the Pearl staff or from a development standpoint. But you could just tell mentally he got shot early in the career and could not handle it anymore.
And I don't think that's going to happen with either of those guys. I'm not saying we have to like be easy on them, but I mean, Chance has played 6 games and he's coming off, a thing, and he's working himself back into.
You can worry about. I feel like the position you can, maybe it's just because we saw it that one time. The position you can most worry about, that the mental side of it, is the point guard position, because of the pressure that college basketball teams will put on the point guard and try to get them to turn it over early. And so yeah, you could see it with Chance. Maybe they're seeing it in practice or something. They're like, we don't want other teams to know that if you came hard at him, it'd be an issue. But so far, it doesn't seem to be that big of a thing. I think he looks pretty smooth out there.
Yeah, he's getting there. I think they'll get there. I don't think you're looking at any. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see a one and done guy out of either of those two.
Oh, you hope that if it is, I mean, we've talked about this a bunch of times too, that if he's one and done, he looks like a one and done. I'm afraid with a Chance at 6'6" playing point guard, he might end up one and done in the second round, and like a JT Thor situation,
Yeah, Jackson's trying to get your players out of here, Auburn fans. He's trying to play them more so they can go leave for the draft.
Well, I rather if he's gonna go, I rather see it happen well at Auburn, But if we want to look at the future schedule here after our long debates, I hope you guys aren't like, oh no, Jackson's on. They ranted for 2 hours about this or that or whatever. But if we look at our future schedule, we got Colgate was tonight, and the next is Memphis on Saturday. Is that the one in Atlanta?
Yep.
In Atlanta. Matt, you going to that?
No, I'm going to be in Philly for another sport of 2 military establishments playing each other.
Oh, that's cool.
Bucket list thing of another sport. So I'm going to miss that one. I'm going to record it and watch it. But I care about this Memphis game. I think people are forgetting. This was like a couple years ago, man. Like, we wanted to kick their tails on the recruiting.
Oh, yeah. Did they still? Is Penny Hardaway? Is it Penny Hardaway? Is he still there?
I think so.
Wow. The arc of that whole career so far at Memphis, I thought he would have gotten fired by now. The way, I mean, he got in trouble. I don't think they ever got NCAA punishment. It's really crazy. And it's so frustrating to watch us get so, we lost a guy for a year and a half. I've never seen a college basketball player get suspended for more than a year. Like, there are 1 or 2 circumstances I've seen, and it always comes from trying to cheat drug tests. That's like the only time you'll ever see more than a year. I think it was Daniel Purefoy got a year and a half. I've never seen that. Austin Wiley, a full year of his career, got demolished. We took a postseason ban. We took recruiting bans. We oh my, no one's been it's funny. They'll talk about Oklahoma State and those other schools that got hit with the postseason ban. We took a postseason ban and then suspended those players. No one else got it worse than us. No one else got a postseason ban and 2 players suspended, and one of them for a year and a half. We got boomed. Meanwhile, Memphis played a player that they said could not play. And they it came out and said, you cannot play that player without forfeiting games. And they said, screw you, to the NCAA's face, played the guy. And then 2 games later, the guy said, I don't really want to play anymore anyways, and stop playing. If there's a case study for booming a program, and you could say, oh, we didn't know this, we didn't know, blah, blah, blah. They literally told you couldn't play that guy. Blows my mind they haven't been punished yet. The Penny Hardaway's still there. They tried to take all our recruits from us. That didn't happen. They did take 1 or 2 guys or whatever. Screw what's his name that's at the Rockets that said he would have went to Memphis instead of us. Jalen Green, right? That's his name. Mm-hmm. Yeah, screw that guy. I know he's playing with Jabbar. I hate that they have to play on the same team because I don't like them. But man, anyways, that's a whole long thing about Memphis.
What about Sharif Cooper, Jackson? What about Sharif Cooper?
Oh my God, Sharif Cooper. We still don't know what happened there. He had a great move. I posted it on Instagram, and I hope people take that as me not hating on Sharif Cooper or whatever, but his career got screwed up by NCAA too. We still don't know what happened. And a lot of it came down to still the stuff that was happening previously. People were just being overly cautious. He would have been a junior this year in college. He's just now really coming to his own. He dribbled through some guys and dunked on him in the G League recently. And I just don't know if he'll ever make a roster. I mean, he's scoring 30 or 40 points in the G League at times. What's his name? Jared Harper was doing that too at times. And if you just have that, freaking height issue, like you can't do it no matter how skilled you are. But this guy would have just been absolutely dominant in college. He got his career screwed up. Ah,
So
that's where
anyway,
we're at.
Memphis. This is a big game. Obviously, the Auburn fan base huge in Atlanta. I'm sure a ton of people will be there. There's like 4 games that day, college basketball games, and I think if you bought tickets to that, you get tickets to another game, kind of like NCAA tournament. So really cool thing to be a part of. Memphis, I really don't know anything about how they've done this year. They lost to St. Louis, I think. I think St. Louis beat them earlier this year. So that's a big game in Atlanta for this team to play in State Farm Arena, where the Hawks play. That'll be exciting.
Only 4 more games to figure some of this stuff out. Memphis, yeah. Georgia State, at USC, at Washington. Yep. And those aren't really great games to figure things out at USC, other than saying, like, can we beat a P5 team away? And it might be a great, honestly, kind of ramp up a bit to play these two right at the end, right before the SEC play. And then 2, it'll be Christmas break for those 2 schools. I mean, we wanted kind of like break in and away like environment, but maybe a half measure might actually be a good thing, an away environment, but during Christmas break, that might actually be kind of a good thing for us. If we can win at those, it'll give us a little more confidence going into some of these other ones. Looks like after that, we have Florida at home. Thank God. I would hate to start on the road at Florida. Then at Georgia, thank God, another great little ramp up to play at a pretty inferior team away. And then you got big time Arkansas, the game I want to win the most. So, man, the season's already coming together a bit.
It's here, man. The St. Louis game really kicked it off. Obviously, Colgate was kind of a little breather the way it played out tonight. But Memphis, I did want to point out, we got Georgia State next Wednesday, and they announced today that if you're in the Auburn area or in Montgomery, they're letting anybody in the student section for that game because students are already pretty much getting out for finals and stuff. They have finals coming up this week. So if you want to like sit in the jungle, December 14th is your chance to kind of be a part of that and get really close to the action and watch this team play.
Maybe I have Peter Pan syndrome or like to be a kid or whatever as a 30-year-old, but go be in the student section and make some noise and have fun. Like, don't act like an adult, act like a kid for a little bit. Use that as like a fun 2-hour one, go see this great team when it's really hard to go see them. It's really expensive to go see them. 2, go pretend to be a kid and have a good time, make some noise out there. Don't stand with your hands all crossed up. Have a good time. Do the AAU cheers. Get into it like you're a student. It'll be fun.
Yeah. No. So we're 8-0. We know our weaknesses. I think we know who we are. We didn't focus enough tonight. We talked about offense and kind of the younger guys. I really want the fan base to just like buy in. Like, I hope you watch this team play defense, and when they're locked in, I mean, when you're at home at Neville Arena for these SEC teams, like, they feed on that energy so bad. This is a team that is going to need those runs, those turnovers, those momentum plays. Like, I just think I see the team buying into that mentality, and that's how this team's going to have to win. Like you said, the ceiling is not, national championship high with the talent on this team. But for them to win one game at a time and advance and do the things they want to do, it's got to be defense, it's got to be rebounding, it's got to be turnovers, and somebody pray the Lord that they hit a shot like they did tonight. And I see that coming into fruition. And I think the fan base needs to, like, honestly, I'm going to call it out a little bit. Neville Arena has been good. It hasn't been great yet in terms of the atmosphere. I know it's going to get there for SEC play, but be ready to bring it. This team's going to fight their tails off.
I'll be curious if we had if Washington came to our school or USC came, if we would have seen it in the kind of like mind's eye that we believe in. I think we've also set Neville Arena expectations just sky high, like top 5 in the nation arena atmosphere. So we're just gotten kind of used to how great it is. And now we want to see those, like we saw for Pearlville, Kentucky last year, and some of those later season ones where the place was just like a freaking cauldron of eruption every time something happened, Plus, and we don't get the Cambridge dunks this year. It's just, no one's taking that Cambridge dunk. Seems like those are the biggest eruptions, right?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, and one of the last pet peeve, it's better than it used to be. If you're somebody who has season tickets to Auburn basketball at this point, and you're not giving your tickets to somebody or selling them for face value, if you can't make it on a Wednesday night for Georgia State, give somebody your tickets. Find somebody who will use them. If you are not going to use them, don't just leave your seats empty, for goodness sakes.
I gotta think it's a logistical thing at this point because it's such a valuable thing to do. I don't know if we need to like get it going as an administration at Auburn to say like if you have those empty seats, all you have to do is give us a call like a couple hours before the game and we will find people to fill those seats. Or if it's a StubHub situation where people are trying to StubHub them and can't figure out the technology, or I know from talking to people, usually those empty seats are people that live in like Huntsville and Mobile and have to travel on Saturdays to the games. They just can't make it to a lot of the weeknight games. I don't know. And maybe you don't know people in the area you can split the tickets with, like, and maybe it's on the administration to make it easier for those people. But, that's all I can think of. I can't imagine people are just like, whatever.
Well, let me tell you, for these SEC games, look, I know, I mean, you can try to sell them on StubHub for however much money you can make, but you know how a way to make sure somebody's going to get your tickets? Sell them for $40 and make some money on the ticket, the season ticket that you bought, but let somebody else go. Like,
yeah, and I wonder if some of these, the way season tickets are, maybe some of these higher up people or whatever don't care to make any money on these tickets. Maybe that's part of the issue.
Yeah,
At that point, that's when you bring the administration in and say, hey, season ticket holders, big thing from us guys. We really appreciate it. If just tell your secretary or whoever a couple hours before that you're not going to make them. We're going to give these tickets to some students that need it, to some veterans that need it, whatever group you want to give it to. And we'll put that money towards charity. If you let us resell it, we'll put it towards the scholarship fund or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know about those logistics. I don't know the scholarship funds and all those things, but last little bit of fun stuff, usually one of my big, kind of things about these podcasts sometimes is they want to talk about their lives or whatever else. I feel like 10 or 15 minutes before they even start talking about the sport you want to talk about. One fun thing is still about the sport. There's a map on Reddit that every day they update for teams that are undefeated. We had an absolutely great time in 2019, 2020 following this map. It's called like the Undefeated Conquest map or something. We talked about it briefly at the start. Get on that. It's just super fun, especially when you have a schedule like ours that didn't really have that Hawaii, Honolulu, Maui championship, whatever it's called, or the last year when we had it in the Bahamas. We didn't really have that big out of conference moment. The big out of conference moment for us is every day looking at that map and seeing, like, being funny about like, it's coming for Nashville. Matt's about to live in Auburn territory if this team goes down, and you get to start watching other teams. You'll never care about Southern Miss basketball more than you do when you know you're about to get Texas if Southern Miss goes down tonight. Yeah.
Here's the best thing about that: we win tonight. You get 8 days till we play Memphis. They get finals week off. We're 15 teams left as of just now. I just checked. So 7 or 8 days. A lot of chaos can happen in college basketball. Who knows how many undefeateds there will be left when we play next week?
You know who I feel bad about? We feel bad that we felt like we had a team that was peaking at the right time in 2019-20, going to the SEC championship. I really felt like we could have won the SEC championship. We could have done well on the NCAAs. San Diego State that year was undefeated when COVID ended the whole season. No one talks about it. That team was undefeated. Like, they could have ended, like, give them a ring just for that. Maybe they did give them a ring just for that. If I'm them, I'm getting a ring to my team for being undefeated. So I feel bad for them. If y'all remember that, it was us and them at the end. And we were watching that map for in February, I think. Still, we were watching that map and having these funny memes online with San Diego State people. San Diego State people were tuning into our games. We were tuning into theirs. It was really fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Follow us on Twitter if you want updates on that. We always keep it going. And like you said, we're acquiring good amounts of land, for this team we scored 43 points in a game, Jackson, and we're still undefeated on the map. So
how did that happen? The good thing, we listened to the podcast. I got to be a fan for a little bit, which is fun. So I did Thanksgiving stuff. This is part of the reason we have it. This is part of the show where if you're still listening, you're diehard enough to talk about this kind of stuff. But we got 4 hosts this year, kind of, to some other co-hosts like Ben and Ryan to kind of take the pressure off of me and Matt a little bit. I had Thanksgiving in California with my girlfriend's family, which was really fun. But we didn't have internet that was consistent enough. And then I did I did this 4 years ago, and I do it with March Madness too. In New York City, there's a neighborhood or bar for every country in the world. And I don't want to go to Qatar, and I didn't want to go to Russia, but there is a neighborhood bar for everything. So I did that 5 a.m. 2 days in a row. And so I was at a German bar going wild against Spain during the St. Louis game, which I just hated the timing because I really wanted to see Yuri Collins play again. But that's why it's fun to have these people. Hopefully we'll keep the format going a little bit. I hope you guys enjoy the 4 people. Maybe you're glad I'm out or Matt's out or whatever, but I think, we're still having fun out here.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. I mean, we were talking about just a lot of people have tuned back in for season 2. We took a lot of time off in the off season. We have lives and stuff. So thanks everybody for listening. I know we've gotten a lot more feedback this year too. So thanks for.
Yeah, about to say, yeah, give us some feedback. I don't know if I put out a tweet or two and some Instagram stuff recently to get like fan feedback. If you like that, if you want me maybe before every game ends to put up fan thoughts and I can read off some fan thoughts off Instagram or Twitter, let me know if that's the best way to reach you guys or if there's other ways, email, I don't know, anything to keep you guys engaged. I think there's been, like we were looking at the Spotify Wrap. I think you're about to talk about that. We saw the Spotify Wrap. Big shout out to our Brazil fans. Love it. Big fan of the Brazilians. Also love our Swedish fans. We're living it up international.
Well, what about this? We're also always talking about, it's been so fun to do the interviews, honestly, of this podcast. Us getting to talk to the people we've gotten to talk to has been amazing. If you have any ideas of like, hey, what about this former player, or like, any kind of, we obviously are just regular people. We can't promise that we can get, obviously, look, we'll put it out there. We would love to have Charles Barkley on the podcast. Like that would make our lives. Not sure.
That's the bucket list. We hit the first bucket that we thought we would never get with Bruce Pearl. So now we're shooting for that white whale Moby Dick style. We're trying to get Charles Barkley. So if you know a way to get Charles Barkley, let us know. Even if it's just like a little cameo saying hey or something would be great for us. But it just in general, if you have anybody you think would be a good interview, if you have any connections to anybody that you're friends with or something that used to be involved with a team, we'd love to interview a bunch of people. Now it's 4 people too. We have time to interview these people. It's a huge treat for us every time that we get a former player or a former coach or an assistant coach. And I hope you guys like it too. So just, give us a shout out. Sometimes we don't know these players are available. Sometimes we don't know how to contact them. And we've been crazily surprised at how many great interviews we've gotten to get. So we didn't think we'd get this far to begin with. So you never know who we can get, if you let us know.
Yeah. My last thing for me, and I'll let you wrap up. Just we always like to, Brad. First of all, you need to watch the rest of that game, St. Louis game, because Wendell doing what he did against Yuri Collins for that entire game was pretty unbelievable to watch. And honestly, we wouldn't have had a chance without him doing that. Which maybe leads to your point that we're not that good, but. Anyway, 2 things I wanted to point out. We love these stats, right? Like Auburn PR, questionable, not always the best. We need to brag about stuff. I think that's what 44th straight non-conference home win goes back to. We looked it up one time years ago. That's still rolling. We've got one more game, Georgia State, to kind of keep that going. We had the longest home winning, 4th longest home winning streak in the nation. I don't know who's ahead of us, but that's a streak that we can keep. Undefeated last year at home, undefeated so far this year at home. Don't take it for granted, man. I know we've had the best run, most wins in the last 5+ years in the SEC, but it never gets old for me. So I hope you guys.
Let's make it 6, baby. Let's make it 6.
Let's going.
Keep this gravy train rolling. I don't want to do another lost podcast. I enjoy when we don't do lost podcasts. Let's keep on doing these winning podcasts.
I agree, man. Well, Memphis, ESPN2, next Saturday, December 10th. Big one. Let's beat Memphis.
For a lot of people, that'll be the start of basketball season. The other sport will be completely done, even after some of the other stuff. So I hope you guys are turning your Auburn eye fully onto this great team. Well, War Eagle, Matt.
War Eagle, guys. Thanks for listening.